Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be looking at the 11th and final season of The Walking Dead. Before we begin, if you're somehow new to this channel, I have a ton of Walking Dead content just for you. I've covered pretty much every season of the main show, as well as the spin-offs such as Fear the Walking Dead, World Beyond, and Tales of the Walking Dead. So you can check all of that out if you want to first. So the time has finally come. The Walking Dead, after being on air for about 12 years, the main series has finally come to a close. There are still plenty of spin-offs happening, but the conclusion to the 11th season marked the end of an era for the Walking Dead universe. And what did I think of it? Well, while it may be one of my least favorite seasons in the entire show, as a concluding chapter to something that started over a decade ago, it was very effective, and the very end of it was perfect. So this video is going to cover each block of episodes released over the past year, the first 8, the second 8, and the last 8. And I'm going to keep everything spoiler free, but there's going to be a small spoiler section discussing the series finale. And fun fact, this is the only season I've watched knowing what transpired in the comics, because I finished the comics just before the 11th season started back in 2021. So with all that being said, let's get into it. So with the first 8 episodes, the primary focus was on the Reapers, a mysterious group that were once in conflict with the community that Maggie was a part of during her absence from season 10. The origins of the Reapers, as well as their leader Pope, are fairly interesting. However, considering this group are not from the comics, I don't think they really needed to be in this season, and I'll cover that later. When the show isn't focusing on the Reapers, it's focusing on the Commonwealth storyline, which is what everyone really wants to see, especially with it being the final storyline in the comics. And there's a lot of good stuff to come out of that, Eugene finally meets Stephanie face to face. We're introduced to Lance Hornsby, the deputy governor of the Commonwealth, as well as Sebastian Milton, the son of Pamela Milton, who is the governor of the Commonwealth. For those of you who don't know, Sebastian is one of the most hated characters from the comics, and the actor portraying him did a fantastic job. And let's not forget Mercer, the general of the Commonwealth's military. He's about as badass as he was in the comics. The 8th episode being the first mid-season finale, I enjoyed it, but I think it was too Reaper-centric, if that makes sense. We didn't get any updates as far as the Commonwealth is concerned. The next block of episodes, being episodes 9 to 16, were much better because they focused primarily on the Commonwealth. And this is where the tensions between the main characters and the Commonwealth itself really start to kick off. Plus, the 16th episode, being the second mid-season finale, was incredible, although there was one character death in it that I think was a big mistake. And then the last 8 episodes is where the season peaks, in my opinion, which is a good thing because I always believe in saving the best for last. And that's exactly what season 11 did. From this point onwards, all sorts of chaos ensues within the Commonwealth. There's a lot of shocking moments, there's a lot of big-scale action sequences, and one of the things that people had been clamoring for a long time is finally introduced here, and that's variant walkers. In other words, a new zombie type is introduced here, and it's utilized pretty effectively. Plus, we're going to be seeing more of them in some of the future spin-offs. A lot of the side characters really had their moments here. Eugene, Magna's group, Judith, Negan in particular, especially with his interactions with Maggie, and even other characters like Rosita and Ezekiel were well utilized this season. The action scenes were among the best in the entire series, especially for their scale and ambition. And another thing that has quite frankly bugged a lot of fans, including myself, throughout the entire show, is the minimal emphasis on profanity, especially F-bombs. Now, there is a lot of profanity and strong language in the comics, and it's very neutered and watered down in the show, which is kind of ironic considering how much of bloodshed the show will allow. Although this made me realize something about F-bombs. If used sparingly, they're more effective. You know, the writers took a less is more kind of approach, and it actually works throughout the show, especially when Rick drops them.
They're fucking with the wrong people.
This final season did actually allow for more F-bombs than usual, especially in the last couple of episodes. And as for my spoiler-free thoughts on the series finale, honestly, I thought it was perfect. It gave me everything I wanted, and perhaps a bit more than that. It's about an hour long, and rightfully so because it has to wrap everything up nicely, and it did precisely that, while also paving the road for some of the spin-offs. Now I do have some issues with season 11. Firstly, the pacing. The first half of it felt kinda slow, and then the second half felt a bit rushed. And you can tell that the writers came up with a lot of cheap tactics to drag the material out to 24 episodes. You know, the premiere was split in half, the Reaper storyline was dragged out to 9 episodes, and it felt like a complete waste because it didn't really go anywhere. The Eugene storyline with him and Stephanie was altered so they could drag it out even further compared to the comics. So I can understand why some people felt like the last 3 to 4 episodes felt rushed, but honestly, I was okay with that. And there's a few nitpicks here and there, like some character deaths being poorly executed, or one of the scenes with Milton not being adapted from the comics in the best way possible, or just the fact that the fate of a specific community is left dangling for too long before we get any answers. Just small things here and there, but overall, this season was great. Now I'm gonna delve into spoilers regarding the series finale, so if you want to avoid them, just skip to this time on the screen. And just a heads up, I'll also be discussing spoilers for the comics, so if you don't want that spoiled, even if you've watched the series finale, then you should probably also jump to the time on the screen. So first things first, Rosita unfortunately was killed off, but her death was actually pretty effective and much better than her comic book death. You know, she sacrificed herself so that her daughter, Coco, could live. You know, at the end of the day, children are the future going forward. Plus, this was very reminiscent of Andrea's comic book death, which was also a noble sacrifice, albeit for different reasons. It was pretty emotional, and I'm not gonna lie, I almost teared up when she was on her way out. And there were 2 earlier deaths in the episode that were also pretty emotional. You know, the death of Luke, with him being a member of Magna's group. You know, all 4 of them were at his side when he died. And even Luke's love interest, Jules, died not too long earlier. Plus, the race to save Judith, that was intense and also very emotional because, let's be real, nobody wanted to see Judith die. Or Daryl. The scene where Daryl and the others plead with Pamela to open the gates into the Commonwealth Estates because all the civilians are locked out and there were walkers that were literally after them. I think most of those walkers were variants. And Gabriel as a character finally came full circle in this season by being the one to open the gates for the people. He's truly come a long way since season 5. And Daryl mentioning to Pamela that as human beings, they have a common enemy because they are not the Walking Dead. That was a nice little throwback to the comics in which Rick mentions the same thing at the end of the Commonwealth storyline. The sequence in which the characters and the Commonwealth band together in order to blow up the Commonwealth estates and kill off all of the walkers, that was such a fun sequence. It's short but sweet, and I loved the method that the characters used to lure the walkers into their trap. That being the classic rock song, Cult of Personality, playing over a ton of speakers. You know, that was the icing on the cake in that scene. Then there's the epilogue, and I think this was about the last 15 to 20 minutes of the episode, if I recall. Everything about this epilogue was perfect. You know, Ezekiel is declared the new governor of the Commonwealth, Mercer is the new lieutenant governor, and just all of the character interactions throughout. You know, it gives you as a viewer an opportunity to say goodbye to most of these characters. And Daryl's final scene of him driving off into the distance was absolutely beautiful, along with the music accompanying it. And on the whole, it's a bit more optimistic compared to the comic book's epilogue, although I did enjoy that epilogue in particular. You know, if you take the best elements from both of these epilogues, you have a perfect ending to The Walking Dead. And then of course, we have the elephant in the room. The return of Rick Grimes. They actually went through with it. I like the idea of him being a prisoner of the CRM. You know, I'd rather have him alive and well than have him be killed off by Sebastian like he was in the comics. I'll never forgive Sebastian for that. At least Sebastian was killed off in the show. And we also get to see Michonne. You know, she's out to find Rick, and so is Daryl. And there's even a montage with all the dead characters, bringing the series full circle. And then it's followed by another montage featuring all the surviving characters uttering the phrase, "We're the ones who live." And the final scene with Rick smiling as the scene fades to white before fading to Judith and RJ was the icing on the cake. So yeah, this finale gave me pretty much everything I wanted, and I think it's easily in my top 5 series finales of all time. You know, as of this recording, my top 5 series finales are the finales for Money Heist, Breaking Bad, The Wire, The Walking Dead, and Better Call Saul. So honestly, you know, I don't believe that it's over, you know. I'm glad it is because it had to come to an end at some point. And you know, we've got all the spin-offs coming up, but the franchise itself will never be the same now that the main series is over and we've said goodbye to a ton of characters. The coming decade is going to be different for me, you know, especially since the show is over, because I've been on board with it for the past 3 years, and it was the show that got me into binging TV shows. So yeah, I think that says a lot. And yeah, that's it guys. Those are my thoughts on Season 11 of The Walking Dead, as well as the series finale. I am really excited for some of the spin-offs, specifically Dead City, the Daryl Dixon series, the Rick and Michonne series. I wouldn't mind another season of Tales of the Walking Dead, as long as the stories are much better this time around. I honestly hope that the upcoming 8th season of Fear the Walking Dead is the last one, because that show really needs to end. And I'm also hoping that we get to see the characters from World Beyond again in some capacity, considering the Rick Grimes movies have been cancelled. As for the main show, I'm definitely gonna miss it. You know, it may not be one of the best TV shows of all time in my opinion, but it holds a special place in my heart nonetheless. So yeah, it's had a good run. Next time, I'm going to be covering the first season of Andor, the Star Wars series, so look forward to that very soon. And yeah, thank you all for watching guys. Please be sure to like the video, share it and subscribe. Ring the bell. Take care and I'll see you soon.